But I had my first two closings within 6 to 8 weeks of joining the team. So if I joined the team in October, my first two closings were before December. And then my third closing was in January. Then there was another light switch moment where come January, I see that I have one closing and nothing else scheduled. And their top producer at that time had 6 closings in January. And I was like, my competitive spirit was like, oh, hell no, that's going to be me. So I buckled down and I just 10x basically all of my actions at that time. There was absolutely no working smarter. It was simply working harder. And I think that was necessary at that phase of my career. That ego is not there the way that it was, but that was so necessary at the time because within that first year, I outsold their like 5-year top producing agent and sold 33 homes that first year.
Welcome back to our Successful Agents series, where we feature real estate agents doing big things in real estate. In each episode, we cover the starting point of their real estate journey to really understand what it takes to build a successful real estate business from the ground floor to the penthouse. And today we sit down with Elizabeth Austin, an absolute juggernaut in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. She's going to share how she was able to close 33 transactions in her first year. And she's also going to give you the blueprint on how to be the top agent in your real estate team or real estate brokerage, which is something that she's been able to do in her team that sells hundreds of homes every single year. Now, I really think you're going to enjoy the part where she breaks down her day, so you get a glimpse of what a successful schedule looks like. So I really hope that you enjoy listening to this Successful Agent. Welcome back to our Successful Agent series. Today, I am beyond excited and thankful for this guest. Today we have Elizabeth Austin, an absolute monster, a personal friend, and a mentor in real estate. But before I really go off the rails and say all these accolades that she's earned, which I will get to, Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me on today.
No, thank you. I really appreciate, there's a certain time where you're clearly way more successful than me. And then when you make that ask, and you wait and because I invited you via Instagram and you see the text bubbles here. Hope she says yes and doesn't leave me on red. So I really appreciate you making the time. I really want to have a conversation about the market today, but also really want to learn more about you because you certainly didn't start where you are right now. That's obvious. So let's take a step back and share a little bit about how you got into real estate altogether.
That's funny because it actually may kind of coincide with the market today and just a very different perspective of then versus now. But I have always had an interest in real estate because my family moved a lot growing up. We moved a lot for my parents' jobs and we're constantly relocated. So I think I lived in 14 different houses by the time I was 16 or 18. We moved a ton between states and I always inserted myself in that process and really enjoyed it. And from that point, it was always just, let me go and look at homes and let me go and find my bedroom and things like that. But I made myself a part of the process. And when I grew older and we were working on selling homes or buying homes, especially even during the Great Recession, I would sit here and feel frustrated with what I saw agents either doing or not doing in efforts to get our home sold. I even felt those frustrations as a 16-year-old. And so when I graduated high school, I thought about getting into real estate or fashion. And I graduated high school in 2009. So I was like, well, this seems like a terrible time to get into real estate. I'm going to go to college and get a degree that I'm going to use for 9 months. And that's all. And so that's what I did. And the moment that I graduated college, I got a job in my industry and I was so freaking bored in that job. And at that first job, I basically started and worked my way up through that company within 9 months. And it was a very small local company. So that sounds like a bigger accomplishment than it actually was. But I worked my way up so quickly. And I was like, there's nothing else for me to do here and to grow into unless someone dies or quits. Those are really my options within this company. At that point, I looked at making a life change and coming back to Texas because it's not where I went to school, but this is where I grew up. And I decided I really want to go ahead and try to pursue real estate. And so as I started to make this move, because I had no strings, my apartment lease was up where I lived. I had family down here that I could come and stay with while I was getting on my feet. And I decided to come take this leap. And I started to look into real estate classes. And I went to a meeting and at a real estate company where they told me, go to this school. And I was like, awesome, great. Because I didn't know that you needed a license to do all this. I didn't know anything. So luckily going to that class, I was like, intro to real estate was like, you need a license. It's really the only way you're going to make money. I think at that point, I would have been so happy if someone hired me like for hourly, but it was clear that's not what they were pitching. I was like, I got to go get my real estate license. And I went to Champion School of Real Estate. And that first day I sat in class and I was bored out of my mind. And I am not someone who loves school when it's forced on me, but I love to learn all the time. And this would be a lot more economical if I loved it when it was forced on me. But so I go to this first class and I decide that it was like a 2 or 3 day in-person class. And I was so bored that I was like, I'm going to finish this class online. I'm going to do the rest of them online. Sitting here is terrible. As you can imagine, that probably took months for me to finish that next class. And then I started to get in my head that I'm seeing my friends and my peers start to get their first promotions. And I'm like, now I'm sitting here not working in my industry, not doing anything. I've got more classes ahead of me. And I started to panic. And so I stopped doing classes in real estate and started reapplying for fashion jobs here locally in Dallas. And I kept landing with Neiman Marcus. And there were so many times I would interview, they'd be like, you're so great, all of these things. And then I wouldn't get the job. And they'd be like, can we throw your hat back in the ring for these other positions? And I'm like, absolutely. That happened 5 times over like the course of 4 or 5 months. And finally, right before the holidays, they offered me a job. And when I actually got faced with that job, I was like, I have to be here like 8 to 6, 9 to 6 every single day of the week. And I think sometimes it was going to actually be 6 days a week, not just 5 days a week, which is also, I work more than that now. But I remember being like, this sounds miserable. Like for something about it just did not ignite me. It did not excite me. I turned them down after them turning me down for like 5 months now. I denied the offer, enjoyed the holidays, went back to Champion School of Real Estate in person, got my real estate license in 3 weeks, joined a brokerage, and got started. Now, I did not get started with success. As soon as I got licensed and I got started, I started doing everything the brokerage told me. And I had 0 sales for the first like 6 to 7 months. I was like the lease queen of the office who was like, you have a lease you're offering? I need to make some money. Absolutely. I'll sit here and take this opportunity. So as I'm trying to navigate being the lease queen, I wasn't doing what I know I need to do. I was not doing any form of lead generation, but I was so green that when I sat down with like the office manager at our brokerage who said, what lead generation are you going to do? I was like, what is lead generation? I have no clue what you're talking about. She was like, how are you going to get business? And I was like, oh, can you give me an example of what some of those methods would be? And so she finally was like, open houses. And I was like, yes, that sounds great. I was like, I'm way better person to person and really convincing. I'll do open houses. To this day, I have never converted from an open house. It is not my forte whatsoever. Luckily, I saw this amazing mastermind at our office with these top producing real estate agents. If I name names, I'm sure most people watching would know them. And they basically revealed to me what I already knew and what I wasn't doing. Because I started to question everything. And I started to question if this was the right brokerage. Because here I am like 6 months in, no sales. But I knew I wasn't doing the lead generation. I knew I wasn't working with like a lot of intent and purpose behind what I was doing. And I felt guilty about it, but I also wasn't doing more to go get more. So this top mastermind, and they all talked about their dedication to lead generation when they were a brand new agent. So I was like, okay, it's not a them problem. It's a you problem. Like put your big girl panties on and like go do what you need to do. And as I started to take that action, there became this opportunity for a team. And they were looking for an inside sales agent. So someone to call on their behalf to set appointments for them. And they were paying $10 an hour. And I was like, I haven't made any money really in 6 months. Like, this sounds great. Let me do this part-time for y'all. I'll be in the industry. I knew my integrity and my ethics. I wouldn't steal your leads and make it my own business, but I would get the skills that I needed. I would be in an environment that I could learn from and I could grow from. And when I started to apply, I was talking to Austin Good at the time, and he was like, I'm so confused. He was like, you're licensed, you're at our brokerage. why are you applying to be this inside sales agent? Like, why don't you become an agent on our team? And I had one prior experience that was terrible for me. And I was thinking, the hell, I want to do that again. No, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm just trying to make some money while I do. But we had really good conversations. I ended up joining this real estate team. I have now been there for 8.5 years, or not quite 8.5. We just celebrated 8 years in October. And it has been quite the evolution of starting as a buyer's agent on the team, growing into leadership on that team, running and developing other agents and helping grow and recruit, but grow our sales, grow our agents, help them sell more houses. Obviously switched to working with buyers and sellers as well. And it has just been this evolution of my business ever since.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
There's very long.
No, that's quite okay. This is your story, not mine. I could tell your story, but it would be much shorter and inaccurate. So one of the things that you mentioned, I didn't know about the slow start, just starting there, because I've known you as a successful agent. I've known you as somebody that has multiple transactions going on at once, where I might see you in Dallas one morning and I might see you flipping Oklahoma the afternoon. I don't know. You go everywhere. I don't know how you treat your vehicles that badly, but you do. But one of the things that stood out to me is what was the shift? What was going from the inactivity or lack of results, let's say? Was it a simple, you got the right information, you implemented that information, and then just repeated that? Or was there a light switch that was turned on to go from having zero activity to a lot of activity? We can talk numbers if you feel comfortable, but it's something that, again, I didn't know you from that side of the table. I've known you from the mega boss that you are right now.
I think ultimately I'm a pretty decently highly accountable and self-aware person. So that whole first 6 months where I really wasn't doing what I needed to do to have business, I knew it and I felt guilty. And at first I was looking for answers outside of myself. And when I sat down to that mastermind with these top agents where I'm just an outsider looking into them talking about their start, it confirmed what I already knew about myself, and there was no hiding that I could do. And so I knew if I went with one of these other options, it would basically be like the easy way out and not what I was probably looking to actually create. That was the switch in the moment to be like, take action. Now, I didn't always still know what action to take or where to get, like, if I was going to start calling buyers or sellers, where do I get that data? I didn't know some of those logistics, but I just knew that's what I needed to start doing. All of that momentum and energy focus there is what started to bring me my next opportunities, which was while I was doing that, I saw the opportunity for the team. I was taking action. I had set a listing appointment for myself. It ended up never panning out, but like, once again, not everything is about the result. It is about the process. And if you do that consistently enough, you're going to get the results you want. I just started taking that. Then I got this opportunity on the team. The team that I am on and have been on is very different now than it was on then. So like, this team was basically built around supporting Nick Good being this rainmaker, badass listing agent. And there were buyer's agents on the team that he would hand over deals to the sellers because he only wanted to work with sellers. He didn't want to work with buyers. He would hand over his sellers to help buy to us for a split. If we had a seller, he would say we couldn't work them. We needed to hand them to him, and we didn't get any sort of like fee or anything back at all like that. I can't believe any of us fell for that, but we did for so long. But what I knew at that point is they were filling the gap that I didn't have. And I was willing to do this while I learned. That gap for me was, they didn't offer training at that time. They just offered access to them, which was definitely something. But it was, they sat me in this room. We called it the redhead stepchild room because like no one else was in there. And so I'm in this room by myself, and I got sat in front of a computer where they said, there's leads in here. And I was like, that's awesome. I'm a buyer's agent. All I need to know how to do is call these people, and I have to convince you that you want to meet with me so I can try to say that, like, convince you to hire me as your agent. And then I've got to go find you a home. I kept it so simple. I did not overcomplicate anything. I wish I could keep things that simple in my life now. Sometimes I think there's a curse to knowing more. Like I almost can't keep it that simple. It's a big struggle because that is absolutely a part of my success that I had nothing else going on. So I was able to come in every single day and prospect every single day with that goal in mind and pick up the phone. We didn't have a dialer at this point. Eventually I asked for a dialer so that I could call more people and amplify it. And that started amplifying my results as well. But I had my first 2 closings within 6 to 8 weeks of joining the team. And then my third, so if I joined the team in October, my first 2 closings were before December. And then my third closing was in January. And then there was another light switch moment where come January, I see that I have 1 closing and nothing else scheduled. And their top producer at that time had 6 closings in January. And I was like, my competitive spirit was like, oh, hell no, that's going to be me. So I buckled down and I just 10x basically all of my actions at that time. There was absolutely no working smarter. It was simply working harder. And I think that was necessary at that phase of my career. That's when I started asking for the dialer. I even was prepared to pay for it myself because I didn't know teams would pay for things like that. And luckily, Austin overheard me and was like, I'll get you a dialer if you really use it. And I was like, I'll use it. And I did. And I would make 1,500 to 2,000 dials every single week. And I would hold myself accountable. And I set that goal for myself. Basically, nothing's driving me at this point other than my ego and desire to like money. And I wanted to be the best. And I didn't like this person outshining me. And that ego is not there the way that it was, but that was so necessary at the time because within that first year, I outsold their 5-year top producing agent and sold 33 homes that first year. So that was kind of the evolution of these light switch moments. A trait about me that you may know or people will see is when something doesn't go the way I want it to go or doesn't go right, I may still have moments where I look outward at other people, but I will always be like, well, what could I have done differently? What could I do? Even if it doesn't seem like I should be involved in what could change, I will always be like, I could have done this differently. That is constantly a conversation to this day I'm having with anything that I do.
No, I have identified that about you. So the way that you take good or bad, the way that you take situations, your response is not I'm going to, even prior to our call, your response is not a typical response that's, common. So the accountability is there for sure. Yeah. So one of the things that really, as your start, and I know we're kind of here for a bit, but I think it's so valuable, especially with agents that are getting into the industry and immediately start thinking, going to maybe a situation, call it a brokerage, call it a team or what have you, where they're looking to negotiate a higher split, trying to negotiating from zero power, just wanting to, there's a lot of value in having a mentor. There's a lot of value in having the right people around you, to where you mentioned the moment that you entered an environment that was actually going to benefit you, you actually saw results. What a concept. But oftentimes we miss that, thinking either we're over indexing on what we think we ourselves are going to be able to do ourselves, or undervaluing the experience that somebody that has gone before you has and is willing to share, especially in the environment that you find yourself in. Now I get it. Not everybody is willing to share, but there's plenty of people out there that want to do good, that are willing to do that. So that's something that I really think that starting out, thankfully I went into a decent environment. I'm not going to say it was perfect, but starting out, I did have some mentors previously. The realtor that helped me buy and sell my house, he became a mentor. Anytime I had a question, my first call was to Bob. My second call was to Charles. He was somebody that got into real estate years before me, but he was my private banker when I was in healthcare. So those were effectively my real estate coaches as I got started. So shifting for a quick second into what's happening right now, what are you doing in your business at the present moment? I know that you have a lot of referrals, but I don't necessarily know what is the input that you're putting in now as you have launched a successful real estate career.
So I am mostly sphere and referral based at this point. That took years to build, years of that consistency of prospecting, getting the compound effect of that, and then being in the business long enough where so much of my business that feeds me is from agents learning that they can trust me with their business and seeing those results and that they get their referral check and the clients are happy. And then my clients having a great experience and coming back. I absolutely also still lose clients. There's still times I don't stay in touch enough. Like, it's a big focus going into 2024 that I can improve on, and just that small improvements that can have a major impact to my business. But I haven't majorly prospected in a few years now. And honestly, it's something that I'm adding back into my business. It's something I started adding back in, let's call it maybe like a month and a half ago. And that was kind of because of this book I read, The 12-Week Year, which Nick read years ago. And I just always heard him talk about, I never read. And right timing, I hit me 2 months ago or so. I read it and it's so phenomenal. And I love the way it talks about breaking down goals. And so I was rewriting my goals and realizing what I wanted to do for a business. And so, I used to sit here and prospect Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. And it would just do that straight. And the kind of business that I've built, I don't have to do that anymore, but I also still want to grow my business. So 3 days a week now, I've added back in some prospecting time in addition to servicing my sphere and referral base like business. And a lot of that is now done through social media, where people will see me or they'll see the results that I'm getting. Actually, honestly, a larger portion of that is my presence at so many events, I think, because when I get belly to belly and face to face with people and I network, and then I put that like face to what they see on social media, and they see that like I am very consistent, like I am who I am, I'm exactly who I portray myself to be, then they feel confident about sending me that referral, and it makes that mind-body connection with them. So I always would say that like prospecting built my business, but I kind of think that's a lie that I tell myself. I think it's my relationships that have ultimately built my business, and going to these events, even when I didn't have anything, was powerful either for my takeaways or for the people that I met. Most of the time, it's the people that I meet that make the event worth it, not the content or the event itself. So that's kind of the way that I'm structured now. I've added in 3 days a week of prospecting. It's probably 2 hours per day for each of those 3 days. It's not a ton compared to what I used to do. It's expireds and cancels pretty specifically. I'm much more in the luxury market these days, which has been great. It took me, don't look at this as just like, oh, she's a luxury agent, everything's great. It took me like 7 years to break into the luxury market. So I was the queen of like $200,000 for a while. And once you break in, it's a lot harder to get out, but it takes a lot to like break in. So I'm structured where some of that is for like $1 million and up of a price point for like 1 hour or so a week of my prospecting. And the rest I'm still tackling just as like normal canceled and expires and not putting parameters around that specifically. And then the rest of my time looks like focused on social media or nurturing my database and my clients. And honestly, there's still a lot of room for improvement on all of that. But that's what kind of like my time and my output looks like now.
So something that I find, that I've always wondered from an agent that does a sizable amount of volume has been that breakdown of what percentage of the day is going to lead generation, what percentage of the day is going to converting the business that you're having, and then what percentage of the day is going into working the business. So showing homes, contracts, and all that fun stuff. So how would you allocate like those three parameters and lead generation, converting, and working the business? What percentages would you allocate for those three?
In my most strict of days, when I was really strict with my schedule, and that's what I'm starting to get back to, but I definitely had a period where I wasn't, I would truly wake up, and I'm going to just give you time breakdowns because I can't think of percentages accurately. I would script practice every day from like 7:30 to 8, truly script practice before getting on the phones. And I did that with my team, or with a one-on-one agent. I would truly lead generate for new leads from 8 to 11 every single day. And then from 11 to 12, I also blocked on my calendar, and that would be follow-ups from leads I called the days, weeks, months prior, whatever was due that day. And then from there on, if I had appointments, that's when I would want to set my appointments for the day, whether that be showings or listing appointments. The only thing I would allow to interrupt my lead generation was a closing. If I could schedule it for noon or later, that's great. But also if we need to prioritize getting this done earlier so we can get this funded, like that's fine. I would let that interrupt, because that's not typically an every single day thing that's happening. But if it gets to that point, then we need to work around that differently. So if I didn't have any appointments, I typically stayed and go back to lead generation mode. I wouldn't sit here and necessarily say I was done based off of whatever goal I set for myself. I always reverse engineered back and knew my numbers well enough to sit here and say, I need X number of appointments this week in order for me to feel confident about hitting my goal, considering that the people that are going to no-show me, considering the people that aren't going to sign with me, considering the people that I'm going to sign, but we're never going to make it to the closing table. Here's how many appointments I need a week to still hit my goal. Then I really would depend, like if I was on track to meet that, like I have set enough appointments for that day for where I need to be. I could choose to keep lead generating more if I had nothing else going on, or I could kind of mind free, very peacefully choose to also just go enjoy my time and go do something else that I wanted to do. So I was very regimented. I got out of that regiment once I became more sphere and referral based. And that's interesting because like I do well with routine and I like to be in control. So it is nice to know. But when you have this business coming to you that you've started to attract in, and you're not necessarily as regimented with your time, that becomes kind of a mindfuck, respectfully. Bleep that out if you must. When that's so what you're used to. And you're like, am I using my time? Is there enough business? How do I quantify this? How do I track this as well as I need to? And then honestly, in 2020 to 2020, the first half of 2022, it felt like you had to be an on-call, like you were an on-call real estate agent. You had to be an on-call doctor, because if I didn't get out there, sometimes that first, like the first few hours, we actually would miss the opportunity. Like in markets previous to this and the market we're in now, it's so much easier to protect your time because I can sit here and say, oh, you want to go see this home? Perfect. The sellers are available today after 12. Maybe that's really when I'm available, but like I can make this work now within your schedule, my schedule, the seller's schedule, because I'm not worried this home is selling in the next 24 hours. That's really great because you have to prioritize that lead generation. I still have to prioritize that lead generation if I want to be able to be in control of my business and also make it grow. I think that's a huge thing, that it's so easy to be like, but they want to go see this home. That home will be there. Set it up for a few hours from now. Like if you get into that habit, that'll become your habit and you will stop the lead generation. And all of a sudden you'll be weeks into it. You're no longer in control of your business and it's running you. And maybe not everyone's as type A as I, but like when you feel out of control of your business, it's not a good place to be for any sort of security. And I feel like definitely in a market like right now, it doesn't scare me by any means. It excites me in a lot of ways, but I also want to feel very in control and secure.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And the whole reaction business and just being in reaction mode is really not a sustainable. Well, one, it's not a viable business plan, but it's really not a sustainable thing, a state to be in anything. Doesn't matter if it's your personal life, your business life, or anything in between. So that, I myself, I'm somebody that is learning that part of discipline from the sales component. I'm okay. I'm not going to say I'm excellent, but I'm okay on the marketing side in terms of, I know the input that I need here. I know what I need to say in these types, let's just say videos, and I know what I'm okay there. But when it comes to the other things that where I'm actively prospecting, that is foreign to me. That's something that I've had to learn. And, I've had conversations with, you mentioned him earlier, Nick Good. He's actually been on the channel as well. So seeing how you look at things and how you're measuring these things, same as a lot of the team members on your team. That has been very, I would say, very eye-opening, very humbling for me, because in many ways, I have a hope strategy rather than a strategy.
Yeah.
I just have hope rather than a business in some respects. Not everything. I'm going to be charitable to myself, but I think a lot of real estate agents that maybe are either don't have the work ethic, don't have the discipline, don't have the right information. As soon as they get into the industry, they're out of business. They just don't know it.
I also think that it's a lot easier to lean into like our strengths, and like marketing is your strength and prospecting is my strength. So where you feel like that's so foreign to you, marketing in an effective way is very foreign to me. And I'm actually about to start paying someone to really help me with content and putting it out there. And like, I've got all the ideas and I want to tell them how I want it to be presented, and then to make it happen and to edit it and basically also put my money to it so that I do it consistently, because nothing matters if we don't do it consistently. So like, I struggle in the area that you really succeed at. And I think being an agent these days, like for me, prospecting, while it's my natural, is also like the work harder approach, because like I have to be doing these things every single day, or how often I work them into my schedule. And I'm not going to say that someone can't go do it for me. They can. You can hire a virtual assistant. You can hire a caller. I'm not looking to add that expense into my business if I do have this time that I can do this. And because I can convert at a high rate, it still makes it a very good dollar per hour activity for me to do. If I were to, when I add this marketing component in by like helping like leverage this out and hiring it, because it would take me so long to do that, I think that's going to be the element that is going to start really adding in that work smarter approach. One of the things that's that work smarter approach. And I think every agent, realistically, you may have the place where you are more natural at, but I think we need all of it, because I think it is this layered approach to business in every aspect, whether it's your business as a whole or how, let's go more micro, how you even sell a listing or something. It is a more layered approach to actually get the job done. And I think those combined, along with probably a few other things, is where you create that longevity, and where working harder and working smarter actually meets. That just looks differently for every person.
That's so true. That's so true. Elizabeth, I want to be super respectful of your time, but I want to ask, where are you are you in growth mode right now? Like if an agent wanted to have you as a mentor, as a coach, or just proximity. I don't want to put labels on the way that you might be able to help agents, but agents that want to build proximity to you, how can they work with you? Can they work with you? How can they get a hold of you?
Yep. I am in major growth mode right now. So I would love to connect with agents. I think some of the easiest ways to get a hold of me is, honestly, I think Instagram's a really easy way. My handle is the Elizabeth Austin. I know that sounds really like prestigious and everything, but someone else stole my name just as is. So yeah, let's just do Instagram. And if you find me there, all of my contact information is also all over that.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much for this time together. I really enjoy the conversations that we have. Hopefully they happen more often. If I have to coerce you into coming on the channel, I absolutely will do that. But thank you so much for taking the time, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thanks for having me.